Assalamu alaikum and welcome to tonight's edition of Beyond the News. I'm ATIQ HUSSAIN. As you know, on this particular program, every night we discuss and analyze the leading current affairs topics of the day. Tonight, of course, will be no exception. In tonight's edition of the show, we will discuss the Centre, the Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are to share resources to fund the erstwhile federally administered tribal areas as we amalgamate and assimilate those areas into the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Very important developments there. The resources are going to be provided by the provinces, all the provinces, to ensure smooth merger of FATA into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. We'll discuss that. Then another important topic as far as the country's economy is concerned. Pakistan and the United Arab Emirates have finalized a support package of $6.2 billion, a substantial amount, $6.2 billion to help Pakistan with its current dire economic condition. Then, of course, Kashmiris observing right to self-determination day to day. Indian atrocities have shown no signs of abating. It's virtually every day that we have reports of Kashmiri youth being martyred. Kashmiris are, of course, observing the right to self-determination day, and we will discuss that as to determine exactly where the Kashmiri struggle stands and what India hopes to accomplish by committing acts of genocide there. And finally, we'll talk about the business climate in the country as we discuss the stock exchange. The stocks have closed flat as the volume has hit a 6-month low. How worrisome is that? There is lack of clarity and uncertainty in the country as far as the economy is concerned. How will we deal with that so that the stock market can recover? That is the question. That's the most important question we'll ask our analyst. Let's now proceed with our top story tonight. In efforts to remove the final obstacle in mainstreaming federally administered tribal areas, the federal, Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa governments have agreed to share their resources from the divisible pool to fund the former federally administered tribal areas. In a high-level meeting chaired by Prime Minister Imran Khan, it was decided that the Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, along with the centre, would provide 3% of their share from their federal divisible pool to fund the specific requirements of the erstwhile federally administered tribal areas. The decision will be implemented within 6 months. The decision to share the fund to immediately kickstart development in the now settled tribal districts was taken by keeping in view the delay in the formation of the NFC and perceived resistance by Sindh and Balochistan to agree to the cut in their shares. Now, given the fact that the next budget is due in a few months' time, the funds are not likely to come anytime soon. However, meanwhile, the federal government would make efforts to finalize the 3% allocation from provincial and federal shares in the National Finance Commission for the former federally administered tribal areas. Based on the projections for 2018-19 of the federal divisible pool and the province's share, contribution by the two provinces and the centre to the erstwhile federally administered tribal areas comes to rupees 108.03 billion. In order to provide legal cover to the transition period and ownership of the province in the merger process, the governance law for the interim period will be promulgated within 1 month. In the minutes issued by the Prime Minister's office, it was stated that the Superintendent of Police, inspectors and sub-inspectors would all be inducted into the police from the federally administered tribal areas within a period of 1 year. Furthermore, the Ministry of National Health Services and Regulation will extend health cards to around 500,000 families in the tribal districts within 1 month. And lastly, the meeting also decided to abolish the post of Additional Chief Secretary of the federally administered tribal areas and to transfer all his functions to the Home and Tribal Affairs Secretary. Now, to further discuss the recent developments, we are joined by renowned Pakistani journalist who monitors events in the tribal areas and in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa very closely. Mr. Rahimullah Yusufzai is on the telephone with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Rahim Sahib. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Now, of course, as you know, this issue has been under discussion for a considerable amount of time now. It seems that they're now coming to an agreement as to how to do this. Now, first of all, how do you see the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf ruled centre, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab agreeing to share resources to fund the former federally administered tribal areas? Some people say that may be quite an ask to expect them to do that. What do you think?
I think this is quite an achievement, I must say,
Yeah.
And, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf government, the party is in power in these two provinces, Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It's part of the coalition in Balochistan. So I think it tried but could not prevail upon the coalition partners in Balochistan to agree to give up, their share and give 3% to the erstwhile FATA. But, they could do it easily in the two provinces where the party is in power and also in the center. So this will, I think, put pressure on Sindh and Balochistan as well, because, it's very important that, ex-FATA is brought at par with the rest of the country. There is more development, there are more resources available. That is the biggest challenge, I believe. If resources are available, ex-FATA, the people would be satisfied and they will get some of these services which are available in rest of the country. So this was, required. It has taken some time. The previous government, tried but could not do this. But I think this government seemed determined that they must mainstream FATA. It's very important for the security of FATA and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and also the whole country.
Right.
Because FATA has been unstable now since 2001.
Okay. Now, Rahim Sahib, given the fact that the Punjab will provide 3% of their share from the federal divisible pool to fund the specific requirements of the erstwhile federally administered tribal areas, what would be the reaction of the opposition leader in the Punjab Assembly? Will there be some sort of hue and cry there, or will everyone realize that it's imperative that this be done because the federally administered tribal areas, of course, have to be developed as well, and this is the only way that can be done? What do you think?
When the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz was in power and Shahbaz Sharif was the chief minister, I remember that, his government and the party, they said that they will cooperate. They will,
they did. Right.
Give more resources to FATA. So if that was their position earlier when the party was in power, I think that they will not oppose it. Maybe they will criticize the PTI for not taking the opposition into confidence, for not consulting the opposition. The opposition is very strong in Punjab Assembly. That could be one of the objections. People's Party does not have any strong presence in Punjab. So I think the PMLN matters, and I think it should have been taken into confidence. It would not have opposed it. I think that, this is being done for the sake of the country. There should be no politics on this issue.
Right.
The PMLN government should be given the credit for setting up the FATA Reforms Committee under Sartaj Aziz, and that committee came up with these far-reaching recommendations. And one of the recommendations was that FATA should get 3% of the share in the NFC, National Finance Commission, and that the provinces should give up their share and give the money to FATA. So I think that, the PMLN deserves the credit, and it should not spoil that image which it cultivated.
Right. As you said, the PMLN, of course, initiated the whole process when it was in power. So, as you say, they might criticize the government for not having consulted them, but I don't think they'll oppose it because they've been for it. They're the ones who initiated the whole process to begin with. Now, it has also been decided, Rahim Sahib, that the federal government would make efforts to finalize a 3% allocation from the provincial and federal shares in the National Finance Commission for the former federally administered tribal areas. Now, have all provinces been taken into confidence, as earlier there was perceived resistance from Sindh and to a certain extent from Balochistan as well?
A previous meeting also discussed this issue with all the chief ministers and the prime minister. And on that occasion, we heard, one of the ministers who belongs to former FATA, Nurul Haq Qadri, who is from Khyber, and he is the Minister for Religious Affairs. He was saying that except Sindh, all the provinces are willing to give up their share and give it to the people of FATA. I think Balochistan, as he was saying, that it has agreed, I don't think it has agreed. So it will require a bigger effort. Balochistan already is very underdeveloped. So maybe they can also be exempted. But Sindh is very rich, and if Sindh also realizes that there are so many people from FATA now living in Karachi and other parts of Sindh. They are part of Sindh, actually. In fact, one of the lawmakers elected from there also is from ex-FATA. So that is the thing. But I believe that, we all say that unless there is peace in Afghanistan, there won't be stability in Pakistan. By the same yardstick, we can say that unless there is peace and stability in FATA, there won't be stability in rest of Pakistan.
That's right.
That is true,
so right.
and I think it is true. Then, every effort should be made to mainstream FATA.
Right. And now, finally, the question that I'd like to ask you is a question that a lot of people are asking about the ability of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government to actually cope with the federally administered tribal areas being merged into it. Now, is the bureaucracy in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa equipped enough to cope with such a merger? Because it's going to be quite a task. I mean, are they prepared?
If we talk about bureaucracy, the bureaucracy in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa was already serving in, former FATA. In fact, the officials used to be transferred from KP to FATA and from FATA to KP. So I think the bureaucracy, civil service, they're already trained in, administering the tribal districts. But I think we have to be more concerned about the politicians. The politicians ruling Khyber Pakhtunkhwa had no experience of FATA. They maybe even didn't know much about the system of administration. Now the chief minister and sub-ministers have started visiting, the tribal districts. They're trying to understand the situation. The health minister, the education minister, others, they have paid visits to, ex-FATA. So we expect them to start realizing that now these 7 ex-tribal agencies are part of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and that they have to also give attention to the problems of ex-FATA, that the people there have suffered a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
And they deserve a lot more attention. So we can only hope, but I'm a bit concerned about their readiness. I mean, the politicians ruling Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to be able to deliver in FATA as well.
Right. That's the important part, as you just indicated. That is the important part. But as you correctly pointed out, Rahim Saab, this is a huge step forward. Let's see how smoothly the whole transition process actually occurs. Thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you. Look forward to talking to you again. That was Rahimullah Yusufzai, of course, a senior journalist, a prominent journalist who is an expert in affairs of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and the federally administered tribal areas. The last point that Rahim Saab mentioned was absolutely crucial, that the stability and development in the federally administered tribal areas is imperative. It is crucial for the overall stability of Pakistan. If the federally administered tribal areas are not developed, if they remain stagnant, we are going to feel the effects of that throughout the rest of Pakistan because of the problem of extremism and terrorism, which has been rife in that part of the country. The sooner we resolve this issue, the sooner the federally administered tribal areas are merged into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and they're developed over a period of time, employment opportunities are created for the people of that area, and of course the educational opportunities are provided for the people of that area, the better it will be for the entire country. The longer we continue with this stagnation in the erstwhile federally administered tribal areas, the more they remain underdeveloped, terrorism and extremism will filter into the rest of the country. Obviously, no one wants that. That's why this decision to merge the federally administered tribal areas into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is such an important one, and it was really the need of the hour. It had to be done. Finally, it's happening. As Rahim Saab said, these are very important steps that have been taken to merge those parts into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and the sooner that happens, the more smoothly it happens, the more developed FATA will become, the erstwhile FATA will become, and the rest of the country will also be better off for that. Let's now take a break. When we come back, we will have a discussion and analysis on another important current affairs topic of the day. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Glad to have you with us. Pakistan and the United Arab Emirates have finalized the terms and conditions of a support package of about $6.2 billion, which is expected to be announced by Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan during his visit to Islamabad tomorrow to help Pakistan address its balance of payments crisis. Now, it is expected that the potential aid package would involve $3.2 billion worth of oil supplies on deferred payment, besides a $3 billion cash deposit, according to various media reports. Moreover, the United Arab Emirates aid package coincides with exactly the same size and terms of conditions as were given by Saudi Arabia earlier. Therefore, it is expected that the United Arab Emirates package would be finalized within this week and will be signed by the Crown Prince himself on his visit to Pakistan. Hence, it will now enable Pakistan to get a total savings of about $7.9 billion on oil and gas imports from these two friendly countries, which accounts for more than 60% of Pakistan's annual oil import bill. Certainly a significant percentage that should help the country. Furthermore, the total financing support now from both the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia hovers around $13 to $14 billion when further cash deposits come into the country. Meanwhile, apart from the United Arab Emirates Crown Prince's visit, the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is also expected to arrive in Pakistan in the first week of February next month, and it seems that these visits are highly significant, given that the economic loans from them could significantly allow the struggling Pakistani economy to recover more quickly than expected. And now, to further discuss this, we are now joined by our guest. He's an esteemed economist and a former federal secretary. Of course, he monitors these developments very closely. Dr. Waqar Masood is on the telephone with us. Dr. Waqar, good to have you.
Thank you.
Now, how do you see the latest financial package of $6.2 billion given by the United Arab Emirates to Pakistan? Seems like a significant amount.
Yes, I think it is fairly generous, and to match the Saudi support, that's a very good development, and it's a helpful development. But, these are all loans, and they may allow you to delay the day of reckoning for some more time. But all of these things are not an answer to the malice that is afflicting our economy. So we have to focus on that deeper problem of fiscal deficit, of current account deficit. This financing helps you for taking it longer than what was warranted. And in my judgment, we should not be sacrificing and delaying the difficult decisions that we need to take to get into a fund program. So in that sense, good, but not the answer to the problems that we are facing.
Right. Now, of course, do you believe that these aid packages from the United Arab Emirates along with Saudi Arabia can somehow save Pakistan from going to the International Monetary Fund, or is that still going to be an indispensable move that Pakistan will have to accept?
I think it's a very straightforward thing. This is like using a palliative to lower the pain, but the disease that is afflicting, which requires surgery, that is postponed. So the time, and when it comes, frankly, it would be a very painful and very ugly recovery surgery that you have to subject your economy we are building imbalances which are getting quite unmanageable. And during this period, if we get support for covering the oil bills and some more imports, that's just no solution. You have to address this massive aggregate demand. So far, there are no major indicators that would build the hope that the demand is contained.
Mm-hmm.
In fiscal deficit,
Right.
you have seen the performance of FBR in 6 months. That performance showed only a 2% growth in revenue. And then the interest rate is now high, debt servicing burden is rising. So the current expenditures are rising. So even when you cut the development expenditure, that will not be helpful because the tax revenues are low and the additional expenditures on the current side will eat up those savings that you will do for by reducing development expenditures. So these are very, very major challenges, and we are postponing them for one reason or another. I think you are seeing the markets are down. Consistently, the stock market is down. Consistently, there is reports that units. I heard about millet sectors. I heard about Ghazi sectors, and there are other units. The production data of large-scale manufacturing for the first 4 months that indicated that the growth was less than 1% against close to 10% last year in the first 4 months. So this is something which is what really is telling about the real economy, and we have to pay more attention to these things because they are the ones who determine what our economic fate will be.
Right, and now Pakistan is now expected to set up a petrochemical complex with both the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. How substantial, how significant is that move?
Very good, and we will encourage all these things. But these are long-term investments. Our problem presently is to stabilize the economy. The stability is what is needed, and that stability is missing. And that stability will come when government deficit will be cut by a very significant margin, when all the electricity and gas prices that are held up are passed on to consumers, when no longer you will subsidize petroleum prices by cutting down on sales tax, which they have done finally, this last price adjustment. They have to charge the real prices and not allow subsidies.
Right.
Because these are very painful decisions. And if you will keep postponing them, you will not be helping the economy.
Right. And certainly you've pointed out some great measures here. Wanted to ask you, are these loans that are extended, you just said that the UAE offer was very generous. Are these loans by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, could they still be considered generous compared to private lenders in the international market?
Well, you compare when you have others who are ready to extend you the loan. You don't have comparative bids. So these are government to government deals. And I say generous because there isn't any history in the past that UAE has helped us in this measure. Even Saudi was fairly generous. But I'm also concerned that both these countries, their generosity, I don't want in any way to doubt. But at the same time, the situation that is developing in Afghanistan and the repositioning that is taking place, I hope there are no conditions and no expectations as to how Pakistan will balance out its regional interest as the situation unfolds and these prospects emerge. in this area.
Okay. Dr. Waqar, now I'd like to ask you, I believe that's perhaps the most important question of all. You've obviously served in the federal government. You know the inner workings, the financial workings of the government well. If you were advising the current Prime Minister, now you referred to the fact, of course, that these are loans. And they're not grants, these are loans, they have to be paid back. That's a very important point, of course. But if you were advising the Prime Minister on how to rejuvenate our ailing economy, what are the first steps, say the first 2 or 3 steps that you would like the Prime Minister to take to turn the economy around, which you feel are the most important?
I think he should have sent his economic managers to sign a program with the fund the first day in the office. And this ambivalence, this backtracking and showing lack of determination on that account is going to cost. It has already cost a lot, both in reputational risk as well as in terms of risking the recovery of the economy. Even today, the foremost thing is to strike a deal with the IMF. There is no room available to claim that we can have an antagonistic relationship with IMF.
Right.
We need to lower the temperatures. We need to stop the rhetoric of dictation, etc., and be a nice client with the IMF that we have. They have a responsibility also towards us. So if there are issues with respect to the nature of conditionality, it should be sorted out in the most congenial fashion. There's no gaining in delaying that thing. Whatever bullets you have to bite it once, because other than that, we will see. I don't think other than that there is a way out. And if they had thought that there are ways out, they have tried them sufficiently, and that is not taking them anywhere.
Right. Dr. Waqar Masood, thank you so much for joining us. I would like to have you on again, of course. I look forward to that. Thank you. That was Dr. Waqar Masood, the former finance secretary, and he was giving his views on the economy in general. The point that he made about the loans, very important. The assistance packages provided by the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia are not grants. These are loans. They have to be paid back. And as Dr. Waqar said, we have to restructure our ailing economy. We have to sort of work on the underlying problems in the economy. Unless and until we do that, we're not going to get anywhere. And we have to invest these funds properly. We'll have to just wait and see how they invest this money, how they use this money that they're getting from the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia and the International Monetary Fund, because we have to use that money judiciously so that the returns are enough for us to run the country and to pay back these loans. That's what's important. Of course, we'll keep you apprised on these developments, but how we use this money is what's going to be most important. Let's now take a break. When we come back, we will have discussion and analysis on another important current affairs topic of the day. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. Kashmiris on both sides of the line of control and the world are observing Right to Self-Determination Day today with a renewed pledge to continue their liberation struggle until it reaches its ultimate goal of attaining freedom. Now, it was on this day in 1949 when the United Nations Security Council passed a resolution supporting the Kashmiris' right to decide their future for themselves through a United Nations-sponsored plebiscite. The day reiterates the long-cherished demand of the Kashmiris that they are granted their birthright to decide about their destiny under the spirit of the internationally acknowledged United Nations resolution. Therefore, in Azad Kashmir today, the main function of the day will be held in Muzaffarabad, and public rallies and special gatherings and processions would be conducted. Moreover, it is expected that the speakers at these meetings would reiterate the Kashmiris' just and principled stance before the world to continue their struggle for the right to self-determination until they finally achieve their ultimate goal of independence. However, sadly, as usual, India, which has for almost over the last 70 years denied the Kashmiris their freedom because of its traditional hostile and stubborn attitude, has banned processions even on this day. Therefore, in occupied Kashmir today, in a bid to stop the public from gathering, the Indian government has detained freedom leaders Mirwaiz Umar Farooq and Sayyid Ali Gilani, among several other activists, so that they could not carry out any peaceful processions for the Kashmir cause. Meanwhile, the Hurriyat leader, Mirwaiz Umar Farooq, has again urged the international community to fulfill its long-term commitment and to hold the promised plebiscite in Jammu and Kashmir to free the Kashmiris from their Indian oppressors. Now, to further discuss the importance of this day and the Indian occupation in Kashmir, we are now joined by esteemed guest. He is the former permanent representative for Pakistan at the United Nations. Mr. Munir Akram is on the telephone with us. Munir Saab, thank you so much for joining us. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Munir Saab, of course, you know what's happening, of course, in occupied Kashmir today, and it's a testament to the struggle that the Kashmiri people have been putting up against Indian occupation. In your opinion, what is the importance of this Self-Determination Day, which is being celebrated by Kashmiris on both sides of the border? Certainly, you've dealt with these issues on a first-hand basis. So I'd like to get your take on this. What do you think? Comment on the significance of this day.
Well, I think it's important to mark this day because this is the central principle on the basis of which the Kashmiris demand freedom from India. This is the right of self-determination is a fundamental right. It is a part of the UN Charter. Is the basis for the creation of sovereign states, nation states, and it has been put into international law in resolutions of the United Nations. Particular relevance to Kashmir and to self-determination are two resolutions. One is Resolution 2625, adopted in 1970, which elaborates the concept of the right of self-determination. And the second resolution is Resolution 2649 of the UN General Assembly, which was introduced by Pakistan and which spells out the whole legal case for self-determination generally, and in particular as it applies to Kashmir as well. So, taken together, international law is on the Kashmiri side. Resolution 47 of the Security Council of 1949 is spells out the right of self-determination for the Kashmiris. So it's important to remind the world as often as possible of this basic right on the basis of which the Kashmiris have launched their struggle for freedom from India.
Right. Now, Munir Saab, I wanted to ask you about the plebiscite. Of course, people are still talking about a plebiscite in occupied Kashmir. Can we still hold a plebiscite in the occupied valley? Will India agree to it, given the fact that the demographics of occupied Kashmir have changed certainly over the years? And if we do, manage to hold a plebiscite there, is the international community going to enforce that? Because at the moment, in spite of Indian atrocities in occupied Kashmir, the entire world pretty much seems to be looking the other way. So they're not paying attention to occupied Kashmir, even though Pakistan is repeatedly crying out for the attention of the international community, given the atrocities that have taken place in occupied Kashmir. So comment on that. One, the international indifference to the Indian atrocities there, and in light of that, can we still hold a plebiscite, and would that be any good given the demographic changes?
Well, first of all, I think one has to realize that human rights or fundamental rights of a people are not a gift from anybody. It's a right.
It's a right, sure.
That is inherent, and that right has to be promoted, it has to be defended, it has to be struggled for. Nobody would accord rights out of goodwill. The fundamental rights of freedom have been given to ex-colonial countries when they struggled for it, when they demanded it, and when they made life miserable for the colonizing country. Therefore, in Kashmir as well, India will not give up Kashmir, will not accord freedom to the Kashmiris unless the cost of its occupation, the cost in terms of its military operations, the cost in terms of the diplomatic cost, the economic cost, the global cost to India's image, if all of that becomes a heavy burden, it is only then that India will accept to allow the Kashmiris the right of self-determination.
Yeah, but see, Munir, that's my concern, though. In spite of the best efforts of Pakistan, the international community really is not paying attention to the Indian violations of human rights in occupied Kashmir. So what more do we do? I mean, unless that happens, we're not going to get anywhere in occupied Kashmir.
I don't think Pakistan has made full effort.
Oh, okay, all right.
For the freedom of Kashmir. Pakistan is silent. It only speaks up at certain times. Yes, the Prime Minister has made a call to the Secretary General, but we should be raising this issue every day of the week in international organizations and in our bilateral contacts with countries. We must be drawing attention to the bloodbath that has been happening in Kashmir. Kashmir is part of Pakistan. The K in Pakistan is Kashmir. It is part of our country. In our minds, in our hearts, in law, it is part of Pakistan. And yet, we are silent. We have not agitated in the way that is necessary, is possible.
Okay.
At the United Nations, in international forums, in bilateral relations, we must make the Indian diplomatic life miserable.
Okay.
Before they will come and agree to allow the plebiscite to take place.
So that's a very important point that you bring up, because what you're saying is the government may be doing something, but it's not enough. They could do a lot more. That's a very significant point. And if they do manage to hold a plebiscite, would that plebiscite still be valid today? Give us an insight into the validity of any potential plebiscite.
You see, United Nations resolutions, international law, does not lapse unless it is replaced by some other law.
Okay.
Resolution 47 and the subsequent resolutions of the Security Council on Kashmir have not lapsed because of the process of time. Those resolutions are still legally binding resolutions. One can argue whether these are enforceable resolutions.
Right. I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Or not. But they are legally binding resolutions. Okay. And therefore, the plebiscite which was called for in Resolution 47 is still valid international law. We must demand that it should be applied. The Kashmiris are shedding blood in order to demand that right. Pakistan has to back them to the full in order to demand that right. Now, if the plebiscite is held, the results, it is, of course, difficult to predict and project what the exact result would be. But my guess, if you see the protests in the Kashmir Valley, at least, my guess would be that the result of the plebiscite, which will, by the way, cover both Azad Kashmir as well as...
that's certainly, right.
And that the sentiment of the combined people of Azad Kashmir and occupied Kashmir will certainly, in my view, be overwhelmingly in favor of accession to Pakistan. And this is what the Indians realize, and that's why they do not agree to a plebiscite.
Okay.
But we must press, we must continue to press for a resolution which is based on the wishes of the Kashmiri people.
Right. Do you think it would seem that this is occupied Kashmir is a ticking time bomb for the Indian government if it doesn't come to terms with the legitimate Kashmiri struggle that's occurring there? You would have to agree with that, right?
This is a ticking time bomb for the whole of South Asia.
Right.
I think President Clinton was the one who said, this is the most dangerous place in the world. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the struggle is going to take place. The Indians are killing Kashmiris. the Kashmiris are fighting with their hands tied behind their back because because Pakistan has given up the right of supporting them materially. The Kashmiris, under the resolutions of the United Nations, have the right to struggle by all means possible for their right to self-determination and to receive support for this struggle, both moral and material. Well, they are not getting material assistance from anybody.
Okay.
They are
right.
struggling on their own with stones against the occupation army of 700,000 troops.
That's right. Yeah.
Therefore, I think if the Kashmiris are allowed their rights, which is to struggle by all means,
Right.
it will become very difficult for India to continue this occupation.
Yeah. Thank you, Munir Sahab. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Mr. Munir Akram, former permanent representative for Pakistan at the United Nations, commenting on the Kashmir issue. Very valid points, of course, he has made. I would close this segment by simply saying, as I referred to in the last question that I asked Mr. Akram, Pakistan has to first, I think, convince the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to back us on the Kashmir issue. That's a pretty large bloc in itself. 50 plus countries with substantial Muslim populations, most of them Muslim majority countries. If we can really make headway in the Organization of Islamic Cooperation as far as backing Pakistan on the Kashmir issue is concerned, I think we would have taken a great stride internationally. I think we have to start with the OIC, convince them to back us to the hilt as far as the Kashmir issue is concerned. If we can do that, I think we can use our contacts and our links with the other Islamic countries to reach out to the rest of the world on this issue. Because at the moment, we are not getting anywhere as far as the international community is concerned on Kashmir. They're looking the other way because of their economic interests with India. That has to change. Great starting point, I think, is going to be the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The other point that I wanted to make before we close out this segment is that the Kashmiri people have already spoken that they do not want to live under Indian rule. They have spoken. Now, the only thing left is a declaration of independence from Kashmir. That is yet to occur. But as far as the voices against India are concerned, those voices have already spoken that they do not want to live under Indian rule. The Indians can martyr as many Kashmiris as they want on a daily basis. But the people of Kashmir, I think, have already spoken. That's all the time we have for this particular edition of Beyond the News. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, we'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same place, for yet another edition of Beyond the News. Until then, on behalf of the team here at Beyond the News, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow night.